Okay, observing children in family daycare part 4. Okay, so we've covered off the different types of observations that you can have. We've done anecdotal records. What else have we done? We've done children's artwork. So now we're looking at video recordings. Now a lot of educators that I come across in family daycare use a lot of videos and a lot of photos, and that's fine if you want to. It really, really is. The thing that I need to probably say to people is that there is a real big cost involved if you are printing those out. So make sure you factor that in if that is how you're going to document your children's learning, if it is going to be a series of photos, because you do need to keep them and you need to keep a record of them. You need to file them properly. You can't just be scrolling through your phone. That's not a professional way of doing things. So how are you going to store all of this, and how are you going to link it to the child, and all that sort of stuff. So whether you have, I know a lot of people have the electronic like Story Park or those sorts of things where they can upload videos and photos and whatever else, and that's really good. You can add anecdotals to that. That's really good. So the system that you use is up to you. So with the handwritten stuff, I really like, as I said, the scrapbooks and anecdotal records. If you are going to print, you can just kind of stick your photos in there if that's what you want. So these tell you a lot. So by having a collection of photos over a period of time, you would be able, that should absolutely give you a visual tool that matches up against your anecdotal records ideally. So that should be kind of supporting your professional record keeping, your handwritten and your records and those sorts of things. They are really important, and this is also equally important, but they should really be working together to get a complete picture of that child. So you can do recordings, like if you're doing a group time, or if you're doing a song, or if you're watching a child master a particular skill, whether that be building a project and learning how to balance the top of the cardboard construction so that it doesn't fall over. So, something like that. You might record a child who is being responsible for their own things. So you say to them at the end of the day, okay, child number one, let's go and get your school bag, let's go and get your bag, let's go and make sure you've got everything done. And so eventually you might say, okay, go and get your bag ready for home, and you record that child collecting their jumper or their shoes or their artwork or whatever it is that they're going to take home with them those days. So there's lots of recordings that you can do. Sometimes sitting down, just voice recording conversations over lunch. Like sometimes they are working with children. Those lunchtime conversations have been some of the best conversations I've ever had with children. So you can really sit back, and sometimes the children take control over that conversation, and you can just record that. And that tells you a little bit about their opinion, their fears. There's a whole lot of information that you can get out of children's recordings. Now, again, whatever you do, make sure it's cost effective for you. Make sure that it links into your other record keeping, and always with everything, make sure that your record, when you look over everything or anything that you keep for the children, and if it is just photos or recordings, those sorts of things, make sure when you do reflect on them and you do watch them over, or you do listen to them again, or you do flip all through the photos or whatever that is, that you can see the children's needs, interests, strengths, abilities, and their learning over time. If you can see that in your documentation, and I've said that in all the videos, it's not what you know in your head. We know you know it. Educators are excellent at knowing children. It's what your evidence and your documentation and those sorts of things, and your record keeping, how you, as a professional, when you have conversations with, say, like an assessor or somebody from the service or your educational leader or those sorts of things, that you can actually show and articulate why you're doing what you're doing. So this is all supportive documentation here, or supporting records, or some people even say this is data. So, the terminology differs across the sector. People use different terminology for different things. I always use the term observations, and then there's just a range of observations within those choices that you have. So that's your videos, photos, recordings, anything like that. Just make sure you, as I said, you link them up to your program. They're accessible to families. I don't know what technology you want to use or you can use. There's a lot of privacy things that we can talk about. We'll talk about privacy, not to share any photos where children are identified. I always say to people, pretend that all the families that you work with are in the witness protection program. It's up to you to protect them. So, you can't be putting photos on Facebook or your Facebook group or those sorts of things. You can't be telling people who's enrolled and all things like that. So just be really mindful about how you're going to store this information and who owns that information. If you do store it, you might be registered with a service that says you're not allowed to take any kind of photos or videos or recordings on your own phone. You might have to use a device that they've provided. I don't know. There'd be a whole range of things at different services, what you can and can't do around all of this. So that gives you recordings and what to do with all of those. Again, be mindful of storage, be mindful of privacy, and just be really mindful of linking them up so you can find them when the time's right. Okay, beautiful. We'll talk again soon. See ya. Bye.